Welcome to the Rising Consciousness Show, 20 minutes of soulful insights and powerful tools to elevate your life experience and create with higher clarity, intention, and vision. I'm Tara Antler, intuitive healer and soul coach.
And I'm King Gabriel, spiritual teacher and practitioner. And we are the co-founders of Ascension Academy of Life,
a global center for spiritual growth, intuitive healing, and soul alignment.
Get ready to blast off.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Rising Consciousness. I'm so grateful to be here with you today, and I have a really beautiful special guest who has dialed in from Bali, one of my favorite places on the planet that I actually visited for, I think I was there 6 weeks. It was more than 10 years ago. I loved Bali so much. It was one of my favorite places on the planet. I dream of it often. Welcome, Sacha Stone. It's such a joy to have you here this morning.
Very good as well. Late night here in Bali, but good to be with you. Thank you.
Right, exactly. Late night for sure. I was just saying that I'm over at my mom and dad's today to keep the internet signal strong. So we're going to hold this high vibrational space this morning. And for any of you that are tuning in live with me, if you have any questions for Sacha, please make sure that you post them here and we will get them to him. And Sacha is, how I feel about Sacha's energy is this powerhouse, change maker, truth warrior who's standing for humanity right now in such a powerful and beautiful way. And intuitively, I was actually meditating. Spirit woke me up at, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was sitting there and all of a sudden they said, message Sacha and see if he'd be open to coming to talk to the community about what's going on. And so I did. And it's just been this really beautiful flow. So I thank you so much, Sacha, because I know you have a really busy schedule, and former rock star musician turned humanitarian, created some wonderful things on the planet, which I'd love for you to share in terms of New Earth Project. How are you feeling today? Anything that you want to share about who you are in this moment and how you're feeling?
Well, bloody tired is the answer. In this moment, I've just finished a very intensive film that I've been making with Robert David Steele, and that's coming out imminently, trying to compress 5,000 years of history into a matter of minutes. But I've been sort of doing a lot of film editing, a lot of media work, as you probably know, lately. And so I'm sort of back-to-back broadcasting and editing, and still staying barefoot and take my dogs with me wherever I go. Right now I'm down at the beach house, which is delightful. So I've got lots of ionized air. But yeah, I'm in a very good space right now, despite the fact that the whole world is upside down.
Isn't it really upside down? I totally agree with you. I'm barefoot too. Everybody always says to me, our kids are always barefoot. We have twins, and Aria, our daughter, she's going to be 5 soon, and we're always barefoot. And my mom and dad are always like, do you not wear shoes or put socks on these kids? I'm like, barefoot, baby. We're all the way, all the time. So I'm with you 100%. And it does feel like the world's been kind of turned upside down. I think this past year has really shaken people to the core. It's stirred up so much stuff. People, like we were just saying, still people are walking around with blinders on their eyes. And a lot of people aren't wanting to hear what's going on. And I thought we could have a really open conversation about some of these things that are happening on the planet. I also want to let people know, some of you are very open in this community, and you're going to love everything that we're bringing forward. And some of you might be triggered by some of the conversation that we have. And I want to let you know that that's okay. Trigger is a great thing. It means you're growing. I always say, if you're triggered, it's your trigger. It's for you to grow. So be in that space and be open. Let your heart be open. Let your energy field be open today. So, Sacha, one of the places that I'd love to start with you that's been really top of mind, top of heart for me is these frequencies of energy, radio waves, or kind of what I call them. I have been aware of thoughts and stuff that's been pumped into the field maybe 2 weeks before you kind of get wind of it. And have you heard anything or know anything about this? So what I mean is, a lot of people lately are talking about so-and-so just took their life. People are talking about suicide. And I said, yeah, 2 weeks ago, there's been these waves of people talking about ending their lives. I can hear these frequencies. And can you speak into that at all? Or have you come across anything in terms of maybe they are pumping some frequencies into the airwaves?
Well, I don't think that's the relevant question. Yes, they absolutely are pumping stuff into the ethers. There's no question about that. And yes, they are pumping sort of mutant frequencies and incoherent frequencies are emitting through telephone screens and through computer screens and through the electrical wires and the electrical values that are blitzkrieging all living systems. in the kill grid. The kill grid is now planet Earth, alas. Before it was just the enclaves of Babylon, the cities. But now, given the rise of the 5G and the Skynet, the whole planet in that sense has become the kill grid. So yes, you've got heightened aberrant frequency thresholds that are being met at the very subtle level. And that's exactly what is responsible for the outbreak of what people are falsely attributing to COVID-19, which in and of itself doesn't exist. But what does exist is a mass excretion or exosomic response through the cellular matrices of all living systems, principally humans in this case, all around the world. So different demographics of people in different areas of particular focus where those mutant frequencies are triangulating, in particular, like Wuhan, China was a classic example. You're going to see an outbreak amongst a local population. And the stupid idea of science is, oh, there goes a pandemic. No, that's not a pandemic. That's actually an excretion event that's happening all around the world. It's just certain enclaves are more susceptible than others. But yes, it's all about mutant frequencies. But it's not important. The emphasis you put on the question for me was not the correct emphasis. It's not about them and what they're doing to me or to us. It is about what I am permitting or permissioning. And so long as I am not standing in that flame, so long as I am not in an actualized state of grace with a psionic flaring, and I'm not being hippie here, I'm not being woo-woo, I'm talking pure hyperdimensional physics. And trust me, baby, if you're not interested in hyperdimensional physics, you better get used to it soon, because it is the stuff that's gonna, if you're describing ascension, or if you're describing the grace of God, or the Christed light, however you want to refer to this revelation that's upon us, this tribulation and this revelation, it is by definition a changing of the God. It is a changing of the geometry of the atoms, the cells, and the molecules that make up our reality hologram. And yes, frequency to that extent is everything.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And this is what we've been saying to our clients lately, is that they exist. Even our daughter, 4 years old, started out of nowhere. This was last spring when all this stuff was really starting to come out. She actually, and I only share this with a handful of people, but all of a sudden, and Gabriel and I, my husband, we don't talk about some of the grotesque things that are happening in front of the kids because we're like, it's pretty intense. And all of a sudden, randomly, she's sitting there and I felt this weird wave come through the field. And she says, I'm making human tea. And I go, what do you mean you're making human tea? And she didn't look herself, right? And I looked at her and I'm like, hun, I go, what's going on? She's like, I'm making tea for the witches that's made of human. And I go, what are you talking about? And I felt this, this chaotic, crazy energy, right? Of some of the stuff that's being released on, in the public and on the planet right now about some of these grotesque things that are happening. So we've been aware of these energetic fields. And one of the things that I like to share with people too is that it's important for us to find that light, that clarity within, and to not necessarily be in that field all the time, but to do what we need to do to raise our frequency, right? Can you speak into that a little bit? Anything that you would share with people on how to maybe do that?
Well, I'm interested in the first instance, I'm interested in what you just said, because that does speak to the changing of the God. And I'm talking about at the psychic level, especially at the collective psychic level. So you have a compression taking place with the universal forces moving in and upon the plane of the earth, and by extension, the humans. We are the living technology of Tara, of the earth. So we're the most susceptible and sensitive to those huge forces. So when you've got the compression happening in the way that it is with the dielectric forces of the universe and the telluric and the paramagnetic forces of the earth as well, they're both kind of moving toward us. We're the singularity, we're the still point in a sense, because the human being is the dance of Shiva and Shakti. We are the synthesis of duality, of the principle of duality, incarnate and in temporal form. So your daughter is a classic example of somebody who is under the age of 6 or 7. And so she's in that very primal state of psychic innocence. That's the time at which the gremlins and the tokoloshes and the egregore and the demons and the sprites actually make their first assault against the human. It happens to all of us. Most of us forget it, or most of us kind of whitewash those memories out. I remember them incredibly, incredibly keenly. but almost certainly there are these elemental cloud intelligences and these different kind of ideation strains that are moving around. And young, beautiful creatures are incredibly psychic, susceptible psychically to some of those strains. And it sounds like just one of those waveforms was moving through her, and she picked it up and had fun with it. And then once she'd expressed it, she ejected it. And of course, it's not going to hold on to her. It's not going to hold thrall with her. But it is a very interesting phenomenon. So yes, and if you do look around you, as I do, and you see people in your own ecosystem, in your life, in your community, who are popping, they're falling apart at the seams. There's a lot of psychic breakdown. There's a lot of suicides, a lot of depression. There's a lot of elation as well. There's a lot of joy and delight and ecstasy and euphoria, every bit as much as there is manic depression and suicidal notions. But that's, again, connected to the bifurcation that's happening, the compression. These forces are actually squeezing the Adamite principle in each of us and bringing that reckoning down to the individual level. And each of us have got to navigate that space in grace. We have to do it. There's no escape. You cannot hide behind whiskey or behind a marijuana or behind your religion or behind your mother's tits. You can't hide behind anything anymore. Each of us are having to face that reckoning at the psychic level internally.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. And these are some of the things that we've been teaching them too, because she was having dragons coming into, like she said, there's dragons that are trying to breathe stuff on me. So we said, okay, so we're giving her lots of energy tools to work with. And there was one night that I actually, in the thick of all this stuff, that I was feeling these frequencies. It was middle of the night, and I was out of body, and I saw these three creatures, beings, not nice looking, coming for each of the children. They said one was for Chase, one was for Cruz, one was for Arya. And I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't think so. And I'm, communicating with spirit, and I said, what would you have me do in this moment? And I flew outside, and I had this like energetic wood staff or something, and it went like right down into the ground. And I felt all this light, and I heard spirit saying, this child is claimed in the light, of the light, for the light. And I did it with each of them. And all of a sudden it was like the energy just blasted. It was so beautiful and powerful, but it blasted out. And this is something that I've been sharing with people, because I said, I never once thought that, when people talk about being baptized, I mean, I grew up in a religious thing and I stepped away from that. And, but I think about this energetic light washing almost, we're claiming ourselves in the light because of this, like you said, everything's being pulled and pushed, and it's powerful.
Yes. Well, ultimately, I love everything you've described, incidentally, and it plays out like that. I would advise that you almost certainly did exactly the right thing, and because you evaluated things correctly. But to lesser evolved people who are on that path of consciousness and exploring the psychic realms, just be aware of the fact that the dragon in and of itself is not the thing. There's the good dragon and there's the not good dragon, and it's very important that we make the distinction. A dragon can be a tremendous benediction. I've worked with dragons in some of the work that we've done. The psychics, clairvoyants, and sensitives, and even masters of Santo Daime and others have worked with dragon energy and brought dragon energy into some of the noble work that we've done. So I've seen some, put it this way, some very interesting play in the past. But certainly about 10, 12 years ago, we were doing a lot of work with dragon energy. And some of it's profoundly powerful and beautiful. But then, of course, there is the film I've just made is really about that. It's about Brotherhood of the Snake, the Sons of Belial, and how, all of that stuff snakes its way right through to the present day. And of course, the caduceus with the kind of Shiva and Shakti snakes making their way up the mercurial staff. We have to be aware that we are in a mortal realm still. We've not yet tripped fully into the superluminal. We've just begun that journey. But once we're in the superluminal state, it's a very different quanta. Anyone who's already convened or reconvened with the Christed nature of the Atman, of the Bodhisattva, not the Bodhisattva, but the Atman, the who you be in your highest expression, the Adamite, knows that you've arrived at that point. Once you've crossed that line within self and actualized that flame, there is nothing on God's earth that will ever extinguish that flame. There is no force in the known universe that can extinguish it. Be sure of that. And as I've said many times in recent years, angels and devils kneel before the Adamite, before the realized human being, for good reason, because we are the Holy Grail in that sense.
So beautiful. I love that. And I feel like a lot of people are reaching that place and going through the shadow points, I think is really important too for people, because there are some that are willing to go there, some are willing to look, some are willing to face it, and others are like, "Ooh, I don't even want to look at this, because it's freaky, it's scary. It means we have to face something, and then we have to be courageous and brave and clear it, And so in terms of becoming more of this Christed energy, can you speak into that a little bit for people? Because I know that there are some variations in terms of what is this Christ energy. A lot of people are questioning everything right now, right? They're like, Christ consciousness, is Christ real? Was this? I have no idea. There's so much that's been infiltrated, right? Even in the spiritual world, there are a lot of leaders that you're looking at and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that that's the game you were playing. And so I think a lot of people are questioning everything, especially in the spiritual world, right?
Good. I mean, that's the point. The whole point of a tribulation or a reckoning is that you do the audit, and each of us are required to do it. And a truly wholesome audit is going to see you return to the hermit's cave, which is what this whole COVID pantomime is given us the invitation to retreat to the cave, so to speak, and to each of us sit inside our own sanctum and address what is real from what is not real, which is why the icons and images playing out in the field of expression are as rudimentary and stark as people wearing masks or not wearing masks. It's such a classic embodiment of that division that's taking place, the bifurcation between the conscious and the unconscious, the living and the dead. So all of those totems are playing out all around us in very simple terms. How you navigate that space becomes all important. Now, you're asking me the question, so I can only give the answer that I know to be pure truth, which is that the most dangerous thing any one of us can be doing at a time like this is stepping further into the idolatry of our lives, which is to reach even further for the gospel or the doctrine or the holy book. If you haven't familiarized yourself with the holy book, then do so. If you have not familiarized yourself with the Talmud, then do so. If you haven't familiarized yourself with the Quran, do so, because these are incredible works, okay, largely defiled and mutated out of their original primacy. But nonetheless, there are mystical traditions there that are very beautiful. But one must only take the mystical tradition and breathe it in until you understand, you cogitate the element of the Christed nature, or the nature of the Mahdi, or the nature of the Bodhisattva, whatever your religious persuasion is. Then what you must do is you must lay down childish things. And gospel and doctrine and dogma are the childish things that we must lay down. That is the point at which you retreat into the cave in a state of pure truth. And that is where the grace of God meets you, so-called God. And the word God is a defilement and is actually a perversion. But when we talk in terms of Godhead or the universal mind, the principle of prior unity, the Alpha and the Omega, let's just refer to that as the Godhead. That's fine with me in this reductive language. But once we move into that inner sanctum, that retreat, and we simply engage pure truth and right action in our lives, and we start to measure and weigh every word, every action, every deed in our lives. That's it. That's your alchemical laboratory right there. You don't need anything else. You don't even need to have eyesight. You don't even need to have a sense of smell or any kind of, you don't need to have any kind of crutch or mechanism to enter into samadhi or enter into your super nature, which is the Christed nature. That's all it is. But it only comes to the meek inherit the earth. And the earth in that sense is the inner terrain, the Tara, the Terra, the Tara, the terrain of the inner sanctum. That comes to you. The grace of God comes to you. Realignment with your own divine nature and an absolute realization that you were never separate from source. It was always there the whole time. Then that was the song, the symphony of ages, the holy Om that carried you through multiple incarnations, especially into this one, because this is the omega point. This is the most perfect incarnation. And to own it and to be in the now and to take your ancient lineage, the alpha point, and to bring that back into reconvention in the geometry of now and place the omega squarely upon it until they both white each other out. They go into phase conjugation. Now you've arrived. Now you've activated the Christic or the Christic nature. Now the silica codes inside your body can reconvene with the dielectric universe. Now you can begin to activate the building blocks of so-called ascension and immortality. And those are absolutely real, always were. We were just invited to forget that by the sons of Belial and the Brotherhood of the Snake and all the abomination and the travesty that's gone on in the last few thousand years, which, let me just say, in and of itself was not a travesty or an abomination. It was a tapestry of becoming, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm like, yes, exactly. Because that's what I've been getting too, is that as crazy as it all is, as shadowy and fearful as it all is, it's this shadow pushes us sometimes, right? It pushes us into the light. It pushes us to become even more of who we are. And I love that you're talking about this energy and light and Christed energy within us that gets activated, because one of the things, and I haven't shared this with any, I think maybe a few people in our healing community, but since last March, about 5 times, and they're not just dreams. So I've had a lot of astral travel stuff happen, and I've gone into these cubes. And so I go, I'm traveling, I'm sleeping, and in this cube, and I'm walking around, and it's like illusion after illusion after illusion after illusion. And sometimes our daughter Aria is with us, and there's like a shopping thing over here, distraction. Then there's a bunch of people partying, drinking, distraction. It's like, imagine every distraction on the earthly plane that exists in a cube, and walking through and knowing that I'm in there to help people, to help move them through that space. And I'm only ever able to kind of lift out of there maybe 2 or 3 people at a time. And it's always the same thing. And recently, the coolest thing that happened, so I went back into the cube. I've been in there maybe 5 times. And it was this strange thing where it's like there's this presence that knows that I'm there, and it's watching over everything, trying to keep everything in this nice little cube. And the last time I was in there, maybe a week ago, things were starting to change. The cube was starting to fall apart. And I've seen these grid lines before. I've seen the cube, energy lines before I even knew what it was. When I was in my early 20s, Spirit said it's this energetic grid. And the other night I was meditating, and it was after this cube experience when I noticed the cube was changing and vibration. And I'm sitting there, lights and beautiful. And all of a sudden it was like watching the grid lines were changing. And it was becoming, because I wanted to bring this forward because of the geometry that you talk about, because I love talking about the geometries. And so the geometry was changing, and it was beautiful. And it was more flowing, and it was more of the sacred geometry, less of the cube, more, starry. And it was beautiful, like the whole thing. Can you speak into that a little bit more?
Well, yes. I mean, you could, these states of consciousness, and I guess there's billions of degrees in the spectrum of consciousness in the holonomic field that we inhabit, and one can access that. You were kind of tipping into a sort of Mandelbrottian matrix of reality, which self exists as a matrix, as a blueprint, as a template. But then there's templates within templates within templates, and then there's alpha omega. Alpha omega embraces the all, and there are no rules. Everything applies within. But depending on the degree of consciousness of a human being, in this case, because we're discussing that, you will be contained within an etheric grid or not, or the other, one or the other. And whatever your soul mark or soul signature, soul frequency is, you are self-electing to remain within a particular etheric grid, so to speak. But there are no rules to the degree to which you can actualize ever further into that supernature, superluminal state. And then that matrix starts breaking up. So what you were witnessing was the dissolution of your own etheric matrix, which was one that you were mastering and being invited to become something of an avatar within that bandwidth, to deal with other people who were contained and to some extent trapped within that bandwidth. And you were acting as the avatar, which is the point at which you move into a higher state yourself, and then that particular etheric grid has moved into dissolution. So it's all just part of the beautiful gradation of the language of the evolution of soul.
That's
Very beautiful.
beautiful. No, it's beautiful. And I feel like this is something that I feel every single person needs to come to for themselves, right? This is part of this awakening, is that, no one can do this for you. No one can reach in and say, like, we could try, we could be like, come on, like there's so much more to see. There's something happening here, like, or wake up, or whatever it is that people, we're wanting to do. And I think a lot of light workers, a lot of healers, they're at that point where they're like, come on, come on, And at the same time, it's really allowing this compassionate, heart-filled space of saying, okay, I'm going to tend to what I need to do here and allow my vibrational field to be as expansive as I can, as light-filled as I can, to be in this beautiful bliss feeling. Because I really, like, this whole year has been a beautiful year of bliss for us and our family. And it's been challenging to watch other people go through so much chaos. And yet knowing that that's part of what people have to walk through, right? We've all had to walk through it at some point, And so can you speak into that a little bit about maybe the courage or the strength that people like to just, let's go, like, let's step into it already,
Well, first, let me just go back to the early part of what you were just speaking about, which is the tools. You were kind of moving towards the tools that we need to help one another, and investigating those. So here's the thing. I encourage people to place more attention on the space between words than on the words themselves. When we're seeking to move spirit within one another, it really isn't the words. It's the space between the words that is doing the moving. You remember a dead friend or beloved, or family member, anyone that is moved into the ethers now, and what you remember about them and the moments that touch you are the moments between the words. Remember that it's not the words, because that's really that's the intake of breath. That's the space where spirit is really connecting at the true level. The words are always connected to spells, to interpretations, and to manipulations, the way that we manipulate one another and try to corral one another into our way of thinking or our way of believing or whatever. It's a beautiful human thing. But I just say that if we really want to engage the business of moving the spirit in one another, we really must begin to understand the art of wordlessness, and how casting spells, the real work, the blessings, as opposed to the spells, the blessings are going to be connected to the psionic intelligence. Then that's me recognizing the transgression of a friend or a colleague or someone who's moved against me, and to be able to, in a wordless space and state of mind, to extend my psionic connection and absolve that entanglement, absolve that travesty or that crime. And wordlessly so. That's where the real act of absolution and redemption starts to move through spirit. And that's how we affect change in one another in a vastly augmented and accelerated way. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, because there are times, when people will want to be vocal about what they believe or what's happening or what they've seen or what's been uncovered, what's been peeled back on their eyes. And a lot of people in our community have received a lot of backlash as a result of that, as I'm sure you've probably experienced as well. Like, people have been very, I don't know, just, let's say, not loving, right? Not very kind, not loving to one another. And it hurts the heart, right? And it hurts the being, because I said, a lot of us are those types of people. If you're in a room and you see two glasses with clear water and one has clean water and one has poison or Javex or something, I would be the type of person, if I knew that and you came into the room, I'm not going to be the type of person that's going to say, you figure it out, like, just go take a chance. I'll be like, I'm going to let you know that this one's the clean water, this one could do some damage, and then you make a choice, right? And I think a lot of people in the community, especially, as the healers, the light workers, the coaches, that sort of thing, really wanting to see a difference or make a change because they care, we care. And at the same time being, like, I don't know if my heart can take that, like that sort of thing. So I love that you're saying breathe into the space in between, because it is about holding that space for everyone to go through what they need to go through. And yeah, it's intense.
Yes, well, it's anchoring the state of being and the state of knowing, as opposed to the state of doing. And doing is a good thing. I mean, doing is moving through time and action and all the rest of it. But now in a time of endemic sort of dissolution of the framework of reality and the conceptual frameworks of reality, the one thing that we're being invited to do, put it that way, at the collective level, is to shut the fuck up and really move into alpha point and still point and just move into the state of grace and see what we see. Hey, when we're not allowing the monkey mind to gibber and to just pick up on, like your blessed daughter picking up on, Hecate the witch in the kitchen there, which is fantastic. But the point is that most of us are doing that most of the time. So I'd say probably 99% of humans at any given moment of time are giving vent to some kind of psycho-emotional or psychosexual impulse and allowing themselves to be the utility of notions and ideas and moods that are flying around the ethers. And because we're not standing in the Atman, we're not standing in our Christed flame, we become the utility, the vehicle for those thoughts. That's what anger is. That's what rage is. That's what bitterness is. That's what sorrow is. That's what all of these deep textural emotions are. And then we make the mistake of identifying with the emotional feeling or mood and go, that's me. No, it's not you. You are feeling bitter. You're experiencing rage. You're experiencing jealousy. You're experiencing deep sorrow. It doesn't belong to you. It is a universal thematic which you are welcome to dive into. And if you choose to believe and identify with that as your signature, as your stigma or your stigmata, then you will drown in an ocean of sorrow, or you will die in an emeraldine ocean of jealousy, or you will be distorted and mutated by the bitterness and the jealousies that come in and ravage you from the inside out, or you'll be eaten alive from the inside by that fire of rage. So all of these things, it's critical that we recognize that these are just universal thematics that are moving in and around the holonomic field of expression, but they're not yours. I don't belong to you. I am not the sorrow. It's not the same thing. And it's such an incredible thing when you recognize that. I woke up from that on the 1st of August in 1997. It was the last time I ever recognized a clock or time in this world, because I recognized in that perfect moment of agony, in that perfect moment of agony, I recognized that all of the moods and the emotions and the tragic comedy of my life was all connected to false ideation, false identification, that it was me holding on to the idea of time itself. Tick tock, I'm running out of time. She's left me and broken my heart, or whatever your story is. Whatever your story is, it's connected to this moot concept of time, and that you've just lost something or someone that's irretrievable. Someone's died. Whatever it is, it's a story. And no, they've not died. It's part of a ephemeral, theater that's taking place in a very, very limited unit of time. And you are investing far too much importance and drama into that. So disidentification from all emotional or psycho-emotional states and reactivity for me is absolutely the bottom line. You must master that if you're serious about enlightenment, and more important than enlightenment is euphoria.
I would agree with you 100%. And I love that you say that, because a lot of people are searching they want to feel good, right? People want to feel good. They want to feel happy. They want to feel blissful. And I often will say to people, one of the things that you just need to do is pause for a second and be okay with whatever is showing up. And exactly like you said, we're not our emotions. We're not even those experiences. They're just experiences. We're here to create, and then we experience those, creations, and then let's create another, thing. And I think that's what's happening.
Wait, the 12-year-old kids are the worst. 12-year-old girls are even worse than boys, between the age of 12 and 14, 15, and they take it so seriously, like the love affair or the breakup with the school friends or whatever. And the whole vortex of the universe comes into that moment. It's very cute to watch from
It
afar.
is. It really is. I remember those moments, though. I said, I feel like when I was a teenager, the love that I felt in relationship was so much more intense than.
To that hot-nosed little kid with the marbles in his pocket. And
Yeah,
now,
exactly. That's exactly it, and now it's like it's different. It's different now. I don't know. It feels different. It's a mature love, I guess. It's a mature feeling of love.
hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully, exactly. And I think it's fun for people to be able to grow through those places too. I think a lot of people, like right now, they're holding on. I think that's what's happening to realities, to their world, to their way of being, their
Yes,
identity.
just
They're
said.
holding on, scared, crapping their pants, and
Yeah.
being like, oh.
And you will go down with the ship, baby. You see, that's the thing. You cannot hold onto the mast of a sinking ship. And this is all about the sinking ships. Each of us, the ego is the sinking ship by definition. You must not bind yourself to the mast. You must be prepared to dive in and swim, and that's the beauty of where we're at civilizationally.
And let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a lot that's falling apart, right? I mean, I have no problem with things falling apart. I actually embrace change a lot of the times because I'm like, let's dive in. And when you have twins and you have no idea what's going to happen and you don't know what the birthing process is going to look like, and everybody's throwing their fear and their crap at you, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to birth these twins naturally. We're good. Like, I know which one is which. We're going to do this. And you have, 30 people staring in the room. Yeah, I really wanted to birth at home. I really wanted to birth the twins at home. I did that with Arya. But, it was like, you're over 40, you have twins, and all this stuff comes flying at you. And so we're like, let's just go to the hospital because we don't have to sign off on all this stuff. And so there's like 30 people in this awful, stark, cold, fluorescent light slab.
No.
I was on a 2-foot slab table. I didn't know any of the people who were in there, other than our one midwife and then, a couple of the nurses who had been with me. And I had to go so far within, and I almost had to do like a bit of a fuck you to people, right? Because I was like, they were expecting. I went so deep inside myself. I closed my eyes and I said, okay, Spirit, I'm like, we're going to do this. I talked to the twins. I'm like, we're going to do this. Forget about the rest of them. And intuitively, I said to Gabriel afterwards, my husband, I'm like, I feel like the anesthesiologist was sitting over there looking at his watch, and I didn't have my eyes open, but I'm like, I felt like he kept doing this, just kind of waiting. Like, can we cut her open now already? And he said that's exactly what he was doing, and I had to really courage myself up. Like, I had to really give a little bit of an FU to say, I'm going to do this. And I trust in the wisdom that is flowing through me, and we're going to birth these babies, and we're going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this my way, not cut me open, splayed open to the world sort of thing with all these 30 people. And I did gracefully. I did. It was beautiful. It was amazing. Natural. It was awesome. First twin, they came out stargazing, right? So their faces were like, like that. But I think that's what's required right now. I think that with a lot of the changes that are happening and a lot that's falling apart, we're having to kind of strengthen a little bit, or maybe fall apart. I'm not sure, but to know that there is this strength within us. There is this spiritual wisdom within us. There is this something that will rise, even if we're falling to the ground, or we feel like we're falling, or we feel like we have no control or no say over what's happening, or we're afraid. That trusting that there's something deep and beautiful within us that will rise. And some of us, it might be just we float through it. Some of us might have to kind of F you a little bit and power through that. So can we speak a little bit about some of these things that actually are falling, in the world? Yeah.
Well, let's just riff on what you've just been speaking about. I mean, the misconception and the misnomer of wisdom, of learning, of evolving, is that we are supposed to be plugged into the matrix as good little plantation slaves on the one hand, and also plugged into idolatry, which is that we pay attention to the Catholic Church or to the Church of Zog the Almighty, or the government has become the church. The government today is the church. Anthony Fauci is the fucking high priest of, and Bill Gates and the Silicon Valley big tech creepoids who float around on super yachts and get blown by $10,000 a night hookers when they're not pretending to be upstanding members of the human family. So these kind of creepy customers who are running Silicon Valley, who are running Wall Street, who are running essentially the Bilderbergs, the Davos creatures, they would have us continue plugging into idolatry. Idolatry is Oxford University, is Princeton, Ivy League is ultimate. I mean, and the sort of Oxford universities are the very worst of them. The Smithsonian Institute, classic case in point. The British Museum, there you go. The Vatican Library. So all of these great big hallowed halls of wisdom and learning and gnosis are nothing whatsoever to do with wisdom. Nothing whatsoever. In fact, you can flip them 180 degrees, and that's what they are to the wisdom flame. So that is all connected to thousands of years, many, many generations, and billions of incarnations of idolatry has accreted into academia, which has become now the creature that lies through its godless teeth, perverts all natural law and justice, and tells us that a stealth virus bug that doesn't even exist is the gravest threat, existential threat to humanity. It is the thing that gives the governments and the executive and the legislative branches of government the right to start to dream up statutes and codes that infract and infringe all of our natural born rights, our civil liberties, and upturn everything righteous and goodly about our civilization. So that's what academia has done. The academia is COVID-19 pantomime. That's what it is. It equates to that. It's pure evil. Okay, academia equals pure -evil, because it's the same thing. Now, when you get that, what's the antithesis to that? The antithesis to all of that and the antidote to it is you and I in the now, right here, right now. And the geometry of now, the geometry in my life in the now is perfection. That is where the wisdom flame emerges from. When I've withdrawn my idolatrous eyes and heart and plasma from the extraneous totems and icons that have been culturally dreamt up for me and have been programmed into me since birth. When I consciously uncouple and disidentify from all, and I mean all academia, all notions of learning and knowledge, that is when wisdom emerges. Because the universal mind exists, self-exists, self-reveals, and self-fulfills. The universal mind does one thing and one thing alone, and that is dance with us. The universal mind is there only to dance with us. And she says to us constantly, and this is the true if you can hear it, there is a whisper in that and that is the universal Godhead saying, let's play. That's it. That's it. Let's play. How do you want to play? And so what you learn from that wisdom flame, which is one, that's Alpha Omega, you learn that what you put out is what comes back. What you project is what you reveal. What you ideate is what comes back at you. Therefore, I am the alchemist. Therefore, I am the second coming, the Messiah. We all are in our own lives once we turn that corner. And the universe is still sitting there in a state of limitless, ineffable grace and majesty saying, let's play. How do you want to play? So now we just need to be incredibly careful and mindful about what we ask for and how we move into this field, how we choose to pick up things and enact and manifest in this realm.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I agree with you 100%. And there's so much freedom in that, right? And there's so much freedom in being able to own that, embody that, house that, like you said, dance and play with that. And I feel like what I keep seeing in our community, I'm thinking about all these people in our world and some of the questions they keep asking us too is, okay, so what do we do? Like, what do we do next with all that is falling? How do we show up? How do we, continue to speak when we feel like this is happening, and people are shutting us down? Or how do we show up when our people are believing us, right?
You stop asking the question. That's how you
I
show
guess
up.
so. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a universal truth, and I'm sorry to be,
Totally. No, it's great.
but the answer is stop asking the question. Because so long as you're asking the question, you're not in a state of grace and you're not in a state of receptivity. As I said, the geometry of now is always perfect. The universal mind is constantly asking you, how do you want to dance? How do you want to play? But if you're asking questions, if you're projecting, if you're idolizing, if you are attaching and affixing your psycho-emotional, psycho-spiritual state of mind to objects and ideas out there, you are not in that state of receptivity or grace. So the answer is stop asking the question, how to or how do I, and be in the now. And trust me, the answer is so immediate, absolutely immediate to each of us. And to navigate out of the dilemmas of each of our lives, because there's not a human being that I've ever met. Okay, and I've met a lot of human beings in my life because I'm just a non-stop doer and worker and thinker and talker, and I'm engaging people all the time. And I'm genuinely curious. And I've never met a human being who hasn't been able to convince me in one 15, 20-minute conversation that their life is the most complicated and convoluted life in the history of humankind. Everyone is, even a bum on a bench. If you start talking about the stories, it's like, oh God, everyone, even the most mundane people. You can see, you can bump into some, turnip farmer in Milwaukee, and he, and sit him down, he'll start talking about the fact that he was abducted by aliens at the age of 12. It's like, whoa, everyone has this most incredible convolution of stories, and most people don't express them. And most people find it difficult to express them or don't believe that they can step up to express. But I've learned that every single human being is an absolute magus, a wizard, an alchemist, a crone, every single human being. Now, the bit that interests me is not so much the sullied human beings, which I count myself. The creatures that interest me are the ones like your daughter, who are under the age of 7 or under the age of, certainly right about, I'd say 7 and under are the real interesting ones, because they're the ones that are carrying the really interesting stories. And that's before we mind fuck them out of their true stories and start to cult program them into our ideas of reality. But if we learn to listen to them and hear them from the moment they pop out the womb, and if we didn't say or do anything to imprint them at that point with any kind of cultural, God forbid, education, but cultural programming or religious programming or any kind of social mores, you just conduct yourself as a mother or father in your home and do right action, stand in pure truth and be explicit and loving. That's all you need to do for that creature to pick up all the right values and geometry of your ecosystem. They will do that math. They don't need to be told shit from you, ever. Not one time did a child ever need to be told anything by a parent. That's the gravest travesty of our age. Right there is the gravest travesty. So if we learn to not do that and to instead lean in and listen and learn from them, whilst they're beginning to remember and tell us stories from the typhonic state of consciousness, from what they recall, these kids are the avatars. They're the ones, if we don't cult program them, that could remind us of our own regenesis more than any great sadhus or a great shaman in the Peruvian jungles.
Yeah, we've noticed that actually, because even at the age of 2, people kept asking us. We were traveling, and we were in Mexico for a while, and people kept saying at 2, she was 2, twins weren't even born yet, and they said, "What are you going to do for school?" And Gabriel and I were both like, "Well, for one, there's time to make that decision, and 2, we're most likely not going to put her in that system because everything that we had been feeling and seeing was just chaos." And I said, "There's so much, right? Like even as a parent." There's so much programming that I'm aware of that I've received that I catch myself sometimes saying, "Oh gosh, like, are we doing enough for her? Like, should we help her learn this, or should we do this?" Right? Because this is all the stuff that's been in our programming, right? Like, be a good student, be a good girl, and then after high school, you go to university or college and you got to be a good student, and all this stuff. And so it's just, it's watching our own. That's what Gabriel and I have been doing as parents, is just watching our own stuff that comes up and being willing, being humble enough to let that go and say, you know what, she's good. She knows
Beautiful.
what she's up to. She loves to learn at 9 o'clock at night. She loves to stay up till 10:30, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. She loves to sleep in, and from the normalcy of that, like,
Yeah.
Tara, Gabriel, what are you doing? Like, there's something wrong here. So, even as parents, listening to her needs, and the twins are totally different, right? But I agree with you. And I believe that this next generation, if we really can allow ourselves as parents to not be hard on ourselves too, to watch our own, like you say, the geometries, to watch our own programming that's been in us and given to us that we accepted on some level, to move that, to clear that, to wash that, and then be free enough to let them just be, because they'll teach us. The kids love Play-Doh right now. They're obsessed with, that's where Gabriel is. He's back at the house right now with 50 containers of Play-Doh, and they're all, doing their thing. And it's fun to just let them play without having these structures all the time. So I agree with you.
I love that. And I think you're very blessed. And I think your family are very blessed. But I would say that you become the prime target of the Luciferic technology that we call government, because they do not want good Adamites. They do not want good humans to be running free on the sacred living soil. They want children to be standing in little cubicles and squares and covered in polythene and masking themselves up and rolling their little sleeves up to get their jabs every 6 months. They want us to be acquiescent and obedient to the dictates of these satanic administrators and technocrats who have run amok on the high street and in media, in academia, in entertainment, and obviously in government itself. So God bless you for that. I just hope that that you guys become the true virus in your own community and spread that joy and that state of grace, because it's the most precious quanta on the face of the earth right now.
I believe so too. And I feel like that's what's happening in our world, is there are a lot of people who are stepping up and standing in that same space of making the choices, and saying, no, we're not going to put those drops in the baby's eye as soon as they're born. You're like, what is that? Right? Or we're not going to give them a vitamin K shot. We're going to trust that their body actually knows how to do what it's supposed to do, and also being aware. Like, that's the thing. Gabriel and I are very aware of when those energies do come around, because I've felt them, I've seen them vibrationally. Like I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, that I've been aware of right before, the whole V stuff was coming in, for people. It was, I saw it. I said to Gabriel, I'm like, I've been having daily thoughts, several thoughts a day of everybody having these shots going in their arms. And then sure enough, 2 weeks later, they said, and look at, this is what we have. And then it was like the next thing, and every time 2 weeks later, they'd roll out with the exact frequency. And so what we've been doing is actually playing with geometries a little bit and teaching the kids about geometries, and, having them focus on light and expanding light and playing, and thankfully we do live in nature. So we're able to, I think, move some of that energy, which is really important. And so in terms of that, the stuff that is out there that doesn't have to, but can affect people, I guess the question would be, I'm just thinking again about the community. Because somebody asked a question here too that I want to come back to. Like knowing what you need to do, right? So you don't go down with the mass, but what if you're willing to die and you're okay with that? What if you can accept in that moment? Do you just choose it? Do you just choose whatever it is that you're wanting? What do? Do you give over? Like, and I think, again, this is where people are in this confusing place, because they're like, do I power up or do I let go? And I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but I'll leave it to you.
Well, the answer is a very simple one. Again, it's a universal one. You don't do anything that moves against your conscience. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, 100%.
I mean, we can intellectualize that, and we can turn conscience into some kind of moral arbiter. But that's when conscience starts to get turned into fuzzy logic, when morality comes into it. I mean, screw morality. Morality is bullshit. One should not be remotely concerned with morality. Now, morality and all of that is interpretive. It's nonsense. It's that there is no moral grievance in parts of North Africa to clipping off the clitorises of young girls and subjugating women to the most heinous atrocities you can imagine. And I'm not saying that they're bad people, that those strains of Islam are some of the most hospitable people on the face of the earth, my beautiful souls. But there is this perversion in their own cult programming where their morality is not affected by the abominations of their culture. So don't talk to me about morality. And don't talk to me about boundaries either, especially not healthy boundaries. The very worst boundaries are healthy ones. There should be no boundaries at all. Because if you're in a state of conscience, there is no such need for a boundary, never was. And this whole kind of nouveau speak about healthy boundaries and teaching kids to define healthy boundaries, that's like 2 degrees away from satanic practices like Black Lives Matter and Me Too, hashtag Me Too. These are all satanic collectivist memes that are diabolical, and the atrocity and the desecration that those kinds of movements do against the fabric of human relationship and exchange, and the natural innate trust that exists between humans is violated globally by these movements, that all of a sudden men are too afraid to even look at a woman across the street. This is nonsense, and we're all variously, responsible for permissioning that kind of PC bullshit into the narrative. But I say, forget boundaries, forget healthy boundaries especially, and forget all enclosures. We need to be moving into the natural unfoldment of our psycho-spiritual civilizational model, which has got to be moving into a place beyond fiat, currency, time, money, fear, which is all connected to. The only reason why we live in such a screwed up matrix and everything is systematized and blocked in, not disconnected to the etheric matrix that you see in vision states, is because we have created artifice in the true quantum nature of who and what we are. So we've allowed the incremental tyranny of Cronus, of the Titan, the lords of time, who have crept in, these egregore energies, and infiltrated the minds and hearts of men over thousands of years, and unitized, systematized, monetized, and securitized our lives into time and motion. And time is money, which it isn't. How could it be? And yet that is the status quo is that time is money. That's an insane proposition. Everything evil issues off the back of that. And yet we're still congratulating moronic football players who are being paid $500,000 a week. We're still slapping on the back moronic traders and bankers and giving them $1 million bonuses because they're fleecing off the pork belly trades coming out of North Africa or whatever the godless business they do. But the problem is that we're still saluting and idolizing monetary gain. And the very worst element of that, let me just say, because I want to get something off my chest, is Bitcoin and the whole cryptocurrency casino, which is as satanic and Luciferian as the old Rockefeller Jekyll Island fiat. I mean, it's not as abominable, obviously, but it's just as wicked. It's more wicked in as much as it's more subtle than old-fashioned Rockefeller dynasty kind of profiteering and racketeering, which at least was so goddamn obvious that you were being screwed over by these sons of bitches wearing top hats, smoking cigars back in the day. Now it's become, cool cats hanging out in Tulum and at Burning Man who've just made like $50 million on some flip of Ethereum and what. No, man, this is casino. You're still playing with the lives and livelihoods and the savings and the hearts and the minds of millions and millions of people around the world who are unwitting in these games. And they are games, and they're dirty, dirty games. I'm sad to see so many of my beautiful brothers and sisters getting completely sucked in. There's nothing wrong with going into it to turn a tidy, little profit and move on and learn about it, crypto this and crypto that. But when you start to really play the casino as though earning, $1 million on a kind of flip of crypto coins, as if there's something worthy in that. No, there's not. It's a godless activity. Nothing comes out of, something doesn't come out of nothing. Somebody falls and hurts on the back of that. And yes, to some extent, we're hurting the old financial system. So to that extent, it's beautiful to watch the whole crypto space, pull the guts out of the old fiat system. I'm just urging people, when you move into that space, go in a state of real mindfulness, that you are playing a casino, and ultimately it's a wicked game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said to Gabriel, this comes into our field and people ask us all the time. And I'm like, something feels off about it. Like I always just pay attention to something feels off about it. And I think it's important for people to come back to that, to know their own truth again, right? To come back to, does that feel in alignment? And most of the time, and I've seen this now years and years, I've paid attention to this, whatever the mainstream and what everybody else is doing, I'm like, I'm going to go in this direction, you know, because I usually know, like, and even with the Black Lives Matters thing, everybody, because, you know, my partner's from Trinidad, you know, Tara, Gabriel, you guys should really talk about this with the community. And I said to Gabriel, I'm like, how are you feeling about this? We don't even say the word race or racist in our family. Like that word doesn't even exist within our home. The kids they don't distinguish, oh, mommy's white and daddy's black. Like that's not even a part of their comprehension. So we said, no, we're actually not going to speak on that, because vibrationally, I feel like it's another distraction. And
Yes.
I think it's important for people to pay attention to, are these distractions that come around, because it's siphoning energy from us. It's pulling us away from ourselves. It's catching us in these webs over and over again. And then we lose our power. And then we wonder why we're exhausted. We have no connection to source, we have no connection to ourselves. I don't know what decision I'm supposed to make. And then question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, no definitions, no enclosures, no boundaries. We need to move and dive into the quantum nature. And the sooner we do it, consciously, the sooner we break down all the invisible contracts and the spells and the bonds that otherwise have asphyxiated us and brought us to this kind of state of catastrophic failure, which again is perfectly represented by this whole COVID fantasy that's unfurled.
No, I totally agree with you. And Sacha, anything else that you can bring forward or that you feel called to share with the community, just in terms of the world, where things are at, any final or last thoughts? And I'd love for you to share the New Earth project that you have, because I think it's a really beautiful space for people to connect to, especially those that are wanting to consciously be a part of what is being created right now: new vibration, new geometry, new energy, new light.
Yeah, I'm not sort of out there beating the drum on behalf of the New Earth Project. I've been doing that for 8 years. I'm kind of over it. We're launching the New Earth Horizon next month, which is a kind of I guess it's a consolidated platform or portal with our media enterprise and our archives and the various initiatives and the different community projects that are happening around the world. So the New Earth Horizon, I can't remember if it's .com or .org. Do forgive me, that's terrible. But that will be launching next month. But I'm kind of out there quite a lot, and I'll be promoting that very heavily once we launch the portal. The New Earth Project, again, is just something which is a planetary template. It's been a success. It's been a failure. It's an ongoing experiment. It's a beautiful thing. The International Tribunal for Natural Justice, which I founded in 2015, is now involved in its fourth Judicial Commission of Inquiry. Last week, I took testimony from the highest ranking police and crime commissioner in the United Kingdom and a crown prosecutor. There are very powerful people who are coming to the International Tribunal and giving testimony as expert witnesses. So we have shaken the branch. We really have shaken the branch. I'm very proud of it. It's very painful undertaking. And let me just hit something on the head. I saw some moronic journalist put out a hit piece on me in the last week. I can't remember the twat's name, but he put out a hit piece on me trying to make out that, yeah, Sacha Stone lives in a palace in Bali, which he made by fleecing the public purse from donations in setting up this spurious tribunal. Well, no, I built my home. I actually designed it. I'm a trained architect. And I designed and built the palace, and it is a palace, and it's incredibly beautiful. And I built it 17 years ago, actually, a long time ago, 10 years before the tribunal. And no, the tribunal has cost us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from our own purse. So we've not made money from the public. We don't solicit money from the public. There happens to be a donate button on the website because that's kind of the done thing. I've had no control over the treasury of that. That's a matter of the court and the trustees since I founded it. But I've certainly pumped an inordinate amount of resources into that court. So I just want to hit that on the head in this interview. If people want to check out the work of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, please do. You're going to learn so much from the commissions of inquiry I've had in the last year. I've engaged with probably 35 of the world's leading medical scientists, health scientists, epidemiologists, virologists, retrovirologists, heavyweights in the medical science and health science fraternity, from Robert Kennedy all the way through to Dr. Tenpenny, Northrop, these iconic Buttar, Kaufman, all of these incredible minds and hearts. So a lot of that content from the media stuff is available on the web through the New Earth Project platform, and that's just given freely to keep drumming up the conversation, trying to the best of our limited ability to stand in the flame of pure truth, especially as it relates to this planetary hoax that's underway, which is a satanic ritual humiliation of humanity by design. I just made this short film, I think I mentioned earlier, compressing 5,000 years of history into a very short film, which comes out in the next few days. So keep eyes out for that. That's called The Cult of Lucifer. And I'm trying to help people to, on the one hand, understand the degree and the extent, the scope and the breadth of the wickedness of evil empire as it relates to the seeding of humanity. But that what lies beneath that and what emerges through that travesty is the Christic or the Christed superluminal Adamite nature, which is now what is on the uptake and the surge. And that is precisely why these other draconian elements, these progeny of the Brotherhood of the Snake, and I'm talking again about the Clintons and the Bushes and the Pelosi's and the Bidens and the Zuckerbergs and the Gateses and the Bezoses. These kind of archetypes out there, and there's probably 300 of them, and they're in media, and they're in academia, and they're in social media space, and they're in government, and they're in the banking sector, and they own the big box companies. There are not many of them. But those creatures are the progeny of the Brotherhood of the Snake. These are scarcely ensouled, unensouled, or barely ensouled beings living amongst the human family. And despite their worst efforts or best efforts at forcing a mandatory cocktail of lethal poisons and heavy metal technology into our bodies by forcing governments of the world, who themselves are the utility of the banksters, and the governments are doing what they're told through the IMF and the World Bank and the globalist transnational banksters, who are practicing blood-drinking Satanists in the main, not all, but in the main, in the hub. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people who ritually rape babies and desecrate human beings and rip babies out of wombs and eat flesh. This is all real. And if it scares you, good. I'm glad you're scared. Now get to grips with it, because you've been asleep at the wheel for far too long. And it's precisely because enough good people did nothing incrementally along the way that it eventuated in this grave calamity that we're facing as a species right now. But what I'm trying to say is that seeding through all of that and coming through it is the Adamite, is the Christed superluminal human being. And we are emerging now. And it's all good. It's all amazing what's coming up. But there is going to be collateral. There's going to be a lot of death, a lot of suicide, a lot of revelation. And it's scary stuff, a lot of it. The falling away of the mask was never intended to be a pretty sight, for God's sake. We are the draconian reptile. We are it. We are the great big slimy, smelly mantis creatures. We are the little filthy, metalloidal zeta reticulin alien grays. We are the Pleiadians, the luminescent Andromedans, and the benevolent Alpha Centaurians. We have all of that cosmogenetic strain seeded in our DNA RNA, especially the junk DNA, right? All of that stuff is under systemic threat by the injection, the jab, because they desperately need to try to mass endogenously modify human RNA, DNA in order to arrest and apprehend the natural, imminent ascension event that is about to occur between now and, if you ask me, the year 2046. So we've got a quarter of a century ahead of us, and most of us listening will be alive. And even if you're 85 listening to this, you could absolutely be alive in 25 years' time, because the nature of light that is impacting us right now is going to make a longevity a lot easier for you in 3 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. That's just the nature of the light coding coming in. But you must not, under any circumstance, allow the Adamite skin to be breached by the surgical steel needle. That is an act of high crime against the sovereign. If you allow it to you or your babies, it is you who is allowing it. And you are the one who in that action are abnegating or surrendering your conscience and your consciousness, and to some great extent, putting the soul on the pyre. Be very, very careful before you do that. And I urge every human being who's got just an ounce of wit about them, do kinesiology, just do simple muscle testing. Should I or shouldn't I allow this imbecile in a white coat to stick a surgical needle into me and pump an oxidative enzyme into my arm with a multitude of lethal cocktail of chemicals and poisons? Why, for the love of the living Christ, would you even consider that? Oh, I forgot. You would consider it because you allowed yourself to be cult programmed by mainstream media, academia, and that satanic technology called government. Why? Because you're a godless, witless, gutless human being and have not yet discovered your own quintessence. Now is the time to turn that around. It's the perfect time, the geometry of now.
I agree with you 100%. And I feel like so many people are having trouble with looking at all of that, right? Because they go, okay, but this is what I've been told, and this is, I'm being a good human, right? And this is, I think, what people have to really question within themselves. Is it really a matter of that anymore? Or is it really just trusting, like you said, and listening to what feels in alignment for you, what feels good to you, that gut, that we know within ourselves what is for us and what's against us. We know, right? And to not be afraid. I think that's the biggest thing, is to not be afraid. And I love that you bring all of that forward, because for a lot of people, it's scary to, because I've seen some of the footage and the videos and the stuff that's happened, to the children, back in June, and our whole community, I feel like we went through the trenches of it. We were like, we were moving it, because many of us have kids, and you look to your own children, you're like, oh my gosh, and it's very challenging to look at that stuff. And at the same time, it's important for everyone to look at this stuff, because if not, then we're going like this, and I get that what we focus on, we create and we expand that creation. But it's kind of like if somebody dumped a bunch of garbage in your yard, you're just going to pretend that it's not there and go, it's not there.
It's not even a philosophical question for many people. I mean, someone here is asking, I think Selena's asking, what if it's forced upon us? If there is no choice, how do we handle that? So let me try and help you with that, Selena. Number one, if it is forced upon you, this is another misnomer. It can only be forced upon you if you permission it to be forced upon you. And I know that sounds like sanctimonious talk from a hippie in Bali, Indonesia. But I'm living in a country which is very militarized, okay? And an Islamic country. It's the biggest Islamic country in the world. They follow orders. The military and the police go into goose step whenever authority speaks to them. The IMF control and hold the balls of this country just like every other godless country on the planet, except for Mother Russia. So and a couple of other countries like Hungary, who've stepped out of the IMF indentureship. But the point I'm making is that, we're all facing threats of tyrants and imposed authority. But you can only have something forced upon you if you give it permission at the soul level. So you should, bless you for asking the question, and I respect you for asking the question, but I would respect you more if you stood in the flame of your knowing that you are the Christed being. You are the godly Adamite, the human being, and you are the one who grants permissions of whatever manifests in the holonomic field. That is universal law 101. So I'm not making it up to make you feel good. I'm just speaking to that which self exists as universal law. Now, once you know that to be so, you change. The fractality of reality changes instantaneously. I'm giving you here the alchemical recipe. The recipe is for you to stand inside your knowing that you and only you allow anything to manifest in the geometry of your life. Then just sit with that for the next day, 3 days, week, 10 days, whatever it takes until you get it. Once you get that piece, everything in your life changes. If there is no choice, how do we handle that? There is always a choice, okay? Always. And the thing that determines the right choice from the wrong choice is called the human conscience. And again, that's something that's plugged into universal wisdom and the universal law. So all you need to do is be connected to that conscience. How do we handle that? You handle it in the way that right action and pure truth determine and dictate to you in the geometry of now. And if that means pick up a goddamn cricket bat and beat their brains out if they're broken into your house, then do it. So I'm saying, I'm being comical about it, but I'm saying that if people step over your line and come at your babies in your home or in your mud hut, beat their brains out, shoot them in the face, take a carving knife to them, do whatever you would do if you were being murdered, or if your lives were being threatened, or if a man came up and punched your kid in the face in the street. What they're doing to your children is a whole lot worse than a stranger walking up and punching your 3-year-old in the face. Trust me, a whole lot worse. Putting an injection into them is a whole lot worse than punching your kid in the face. It's just not, it's less palatable. So the point is, you need to know these things to be thus. Once you know them to be thus, the universe dances with you. Again, this is universal law. Everything is subject to this, including the wiles and the fancies of these godless little turds in the public health administration sector. Fuck them. Stop being afraid of something that doesn't even have a name or a heartbeat. It's a technocracy. It's a godless Cronus. It's a Titan. It's a Leviathan that in and of itself doesn't exist. It has no pulse. It has no breath. So don't be afraid of it. Once you've recognized what I've just said in the sanctity of your own home, then you do something called moving on the front foot, getting off the back foot and moving onto the front foot. That's where you're required to speak to your neighbor over the picket fence or pick up the phone to your friends and family and gather them around and get everyone pissed off and all riled up in the right way, and then make your move against the fiction. Go take the fight to the public health administrator. Go and file papers in your local courtroom. Don't ask me how to do it in Toronto or in Lorenzo Marks or in Bulawayo. Find out. Spend 3 days off Netflix and studying that. And then take the fight to the man. Go and fill out the forms. Find the name of the public. Ask the person who's knocking on the door, who's trying to give you your lethal injection. Ask them who mandates them. Find the name. Don't open the door to these people, but find out the name of the wet ink signatory, the person whose wet ink signature is the determining factor of those officials coming and knocking on your door or making the phone call or sending you emails. So you need to do your work, go on the front foot and take the fight to the wet ink signatory. And then with your friends and family or whoever you've got around you, sell your car if you need to, put a file against those individuals and immediately start doing it. If 500 people alone, just 500 people did that in any town or any city, anywhere in the world, it would crunch the entire legal system. That day, the legal system would grind to a halt. If 300 to 500 people did the same filing on the same day. So you see, we can turn this thing around very, very quickly, but not if we're all in this bizarre state of acquiescence where we're all whinging and griping and bitching and bleating about what's going on, but none of us are taking the fight to the man. And that's what it's about. We've got to go against the technocrats, re-educate them, retool and repurpose our governments, get rid of them ultimately, if you ask me. And yes, I do have a far better option. It's called the New Earth Project.
Exactly. And it's funny because I used to work at the Ministry of Health years ago because I needed a job. I needed money when I came out of university because I had this much debt, right? And did nothing with that degree when I came out of university. And so I'm working at the Ministry of Health. And I remember I was in the elevator with one of the guys who had created or been a part of the team that created the initial flu shot. And they were talking very quietly. So they didn't even know that anybody else was really there. And so the guy asked them, his assistant says, so where do you go to get your shot? Like, where do you take you and your family? He said, I don't take it. He said, well, what do you mean you don't take it? He said, I'm not going to give that to myself or my kids. Are you kidding me?
Right.
And that was like, this was almost 20 years, more than 20 years ago now. And that changed everything for me. Changed everything. I'm like, so these guys that are creating this stuff, that are pumping it out, they won't take it, but we're all supposed to blindly receive that. I'm so grateful that I had that experience back then, because it once you face this, like once you hear some of the things that Sacha's saying, is that it opens you up. And it's okay to look, and it's okay to feel the fear, and it's okay to look at the shadow, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and it's okay to have your whole world crack open and be like, what do you mean? All this that I believe to be true isn't true? What do you mean? This is really going on behind the scenes? Just be open. And I think as we do that, we can have that internal cracking, and then we actually might do something different. We might make a different choice. But to also look at, like, where are you being forced from? Is it because you need money, because that job over there says you have to get this thing given to you, injected into you in order to have that job? Then I'd say start a home-based business or something. I don't know. Like, there's many other options, right? And so I love that you bring this forward, Sacha. It's really, really important conversation.
Yeah, and get out of the kill grid. I mean, the other part of this is get out of the kill grid. So wake up to the fact that you, as well as 9 out of 10 human beings, have simply become wage slaves, plantation slaves, registered indentured slaves to the crown, to the state. All of your natural born rights have been infracted, violated. The creature called government is committed treason, is committing manslaughter, is committing willful murder, is committing genocide, eugenics by extension, which is a genocide and treason. It is conducting kidnapping, it's conducting deception and fraud. There is not a crime that you could dream up that governments themselves are not now the perfect archetypal criminals in their conduct. So that's what we've arrived at. That's okay. It's okay that our civilizational model has arrived at that stage. It's just good. It's good to recognize it and see it. And the key thing is not to be remotely afraid of it. And again, if I was simply sat on a beach throwing pebbles at the system and writing an angry blog, which doesn't describe me at all, I'm meeting with leadership. I'm meeting with political leadership. I'm meeting with police chiefs and commissioners. I'm meeting with heavyweights, a lot of lawyers and barristers and judges. I'm meeting with a lot of political figures as well. And I meet with a hell of a lot of medical science and health science experts right now, more than any time before. So the work I've done for over 22 years with humanitarian has really created this tremendous global network of leadership. I'm very plugged in, and I can tell you that 90% of leadership are appalled themselves by the rollout, but what's unfolded. But it's almost as though the creature has taken on a life of its own. But that's what a technocracy does, or a bureaucracy ends up doing. It ends up taking on a life of its own. This what we're witnessing at the planetary level of bureaucracy is actually the promise and the threat of where AI, artificialization, and robots and cyborgs take us in the future, when the computers take over our world. This is just an early stage warning saying, hey guys, wake up, slap. You really don't want to go into Elon Musk's vision, or Zuckerberg's vision, or any of these other people's vision of the future. You really don't want to have Google implants in the eyes and have our neural synapses all wired up to the planetary matrix. That is a perversion of God's law. And this is just a big slap in the face right now. This whole COVID pantomime is a slap in the face. It's an early warning. So recognize it, uncouple from it, step away from that plantation slave job You really don't want it. And I'll tell you why you don't want it. And I've thought this through, and I've had the conversations with enough people to know that this is absolute. You don't want it because no matter what your wage is, you're paying 85% of it away on insurances and on taxes and on mortgages and on interest bearing and on all of the trivia that makes up a false light reality that you need to earn a big wage and be a PhD in such a situation to afford such and such a lifestyle. That lifestyle has not brought you to happiness. It's brought the world to where it's at. And if you, even worse, are one of those godless technocrats and bureaucrats, I forgive you in the now, but you must step away from that godlessness. You really must, because there are going to be ropes swinging, and there is going to be a epochal Nuremberg type trial that is going to make the Nazi sympathizers look like they got away lightly in 1945, 46. You do not want to be holding down a job in the public health administration sector or in the parliament, any of those high echelon stations that in the false light civilization, you were being applauded by people. Oh, he really got somewhere in life. You know, look at his great station. No, if you got there, you really want to uncouple now and get the hell out of Dodge. Because there is going to be a reckoning, a tremendous reckoning when the world wakes up to the global deception and the fraud that has been perpetrated against living men and women of the living soil. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's amazing and powerful. And I feel it's time. It's time for people to make the choices that they feel and they know that they want to make and they need to make, and to have that courage. So I thank you so much, Sacha. I know that you're a busy man. You got a lot going on. And I really, really appreciate taking the time to speak to the community and just shedding some light and bringing courage and strength and just helping people kind of understand and feel what's going on out there, and that it's okay. We're all okay, you know, and it's good. Anything that you want to end off with?
That's all good, Tara. Thank you for that, and please send my love to Gabriel. Thank you.
I will so much. Thank you so much. And definitely check out Sacha's work. He's got a lot of videos. There's always something amazing that he's talking about, and just keep looking at it. Keep looking at it. Don't be afraid to look at the stuff. Don't be afraid to look at the fear. Don't be afraid to look at whatever the shadow stuff is. Remember, the shadow allows you to grow. The shadow pushes us sometimes to grow. It's very uncomfortable. And yet the faster we turn and face it, the faster we're free. So let yourself be free. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Lots of love. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising Consciousness Show today. To join our Facebook group, all you need to do is go to www.facebook.com/groups/I Rise and Thrive.